Hello everyone. Welcome to the training webinar of Open Specimens. So today's topic is ordering and distribution. So what we will learn today? We learn how to create distribution protocols, how to link the DP to a CP, so that's the distribution protocol to a collection protocol. Then how to add custom fields and at which level are these available. Then what is direct or one-click distribution? What are the email notifications that are sent out? And the invoicing plugin. Okay. So when to use distribution? When we have to send out samples to researchers or some other biobanks or institutes, we can use distribution. Okay. So for distribution, the first and foremost important thing is a distribution protocol. So a distribution protocol is nothing but a project or study to which the specimens are being distributed. So who can create this? Only the admins can create DPs. So any users with lower privileges like the tissue banker or technicians do not have the rights to create distribution protocols. So DP requirements. Say I have to send out samples, say 50 breast tumor samples to a particular researcher in a period of 1 year. So I can create a DP requirement on for that DP saying that I need to distribute only 50 samples which are of tissue origin and are the pathological status for this samples is malignant. I can specify all these requirements and the number of specimens that will be distributed, the amount will be automatically deducted from that section. Custom fields. So as you know, custom fields are used to collect additional data. So you can collect additional data at the distribution protocol level, then the DP requirement level, and also when creating orders. So who can distribute the samples? The user who has access to the CP and DP site, user having access to the distributing site, and order privileges to the user. So if all these criteria are satisfied, user should be able to distribute samples without any issue. So now let's go ahead and create a distribution protocol. Okay, so once you log, so I will be using the demo site for the demo. So I have logged into the demo site, and if you scroll down, you should see a card over here called as distribution protocols. If I click on this card, I will be navigated to the distribution protocol list page where I'll see all the existing DPs over here. Okay, on the right side, there are some filters using which I can search for the distribution protocols. Okay, and this is the list. So now let's go ahead and create a distribution protocol. So it is possible to create distribution protocol one by one, or I even have an option to create the distribution protocols in bulk. So let's go ahead and create the DP from the user interface. So I'll name you can put the long title of the DP over here. So let's say training webinar distribution protocol. Okay, and a short title. So it can just be training DP. So receiving institute. So this will be the institute where the samples are being sent to. Okay, so today I'll just use the demo users institute for receiving and sending samples. So once you select the institute, you can even select a receiving site to which the samples are to be sent out. Or if you want to keep this as a broad approach, I can just leave it, you can just leave it as blank. But if you want to send it to a very specific site under this DP, you can select the site from there. The next field is the principal investigator. So this is a list of users who belong to the receiving site that you have selected here. So let me add my name. Okay. Then similar to the collection protocol, as we have protocol coordinators, you can add protocol coordinators at the distribution protocol level as well. So let me select a few users here. Okay. You can just select some users. And the next field is the IRB ID. So similar to the CP, you can also specify the IRB board ID, the ID that is given in this field. So that is an optional field. If you don't have any ID, you can just leave it blank. Then there's a start date and end date. So here you can specify the duration in which the distribution is going to happen. As I said, I plan to send out samples for a period of 1 year. So you can select that duration here. So let's say my distribution started from June and it's going to end in, say it's for 2 years. Okay, and let's say it's again. Okay, so that's a period of 2 years. So before the DP expires, I will be getting, so I am the principal investigator. I'll be getting notification saying that your distribution protocol is about to expire. Okay, so the next field is the label format. So this is useful when one has to anonymize the samples. So what do I mean by anonymize? Sometimes samples may contain some data that users do not wish to share it with the researchers. So in this case, what you can do is you can add label format. So these are some tokens that are available. You can add a format, and when the samples are distributed, the labels, the anonymized labels will be created. So let's use an example format from here. And I'll show you once we distribute the samples, I'll show you how the labels get generated. So this is an optional field. If you don't wish to generate any sample labels and just use the existing ones, you can leave this field blank. The next field is order custom fields. So here you can select what custom fields do you want to show when creating orders. So this will be applicable only for this DP. So here I have already created an order custom form. I'll select that from the drop down, and once we create the order, you will be able to see that the fields from this form will be displayed at the bottom. Okay. Next is the order report query. When I distribute an order, I want to download a report of what all samples were sent out along with some details. So you can create a query for all such fields and save the query. The saved query will then be displayed in this dropdown. So as of now, I'll just use an existing report. Okay. If you leave this field blank, there is a setting which is set up using which the default report can be downloaded. So let me take you to the settings. Okay, and I'll say report. Yeah. So here is the saved query ID that is given. So if user does not specify any query over there, the default report will be downloaded based on the query ID that is added over here. So as of now, I have selected a query. So the data format will be according to this query. Next is disable email notifications. So whenever an order is created or the order is retrieved, the email notifications are sent out to users. If you do not want to be bothered with these email notifications, you can just click on this checkbox and no emails will be sent out for this particular distribution protocol. So let's leave it enabled. Then the distributing site. So this institute and sites are places from where the samples are going to be sent out. Okay, so here, so this should be the sites where the samples are collected, stored. Okay, so I'm using the same site because I'm sending it out from site A to site B, which belongs to the demo institute. Okay, and I can leave the sites blank. It will take up as all current and future, or if you want, you can even select some sites from here. So I leave it blank as of now. You can add multiple places from where the specimens are going to be sent out. Say I want to say that here I am going to send samples from say Arkansas lab, and again from, so there's, oh sorry, I'm selecting the same one twice. So I can select multiple distributing places here. So as of now, let's just keep it simple and just I'm selecting only one institute here. Then this is a custom field. So let me take you to the form. I've created a form for the DP. Okay, so this is the DP custom form, and this is the field that I have added. So the board approval ID. Okay, so this is some additional ID that the users wish to collect at the DP level. Okay, and once the form is created, all you need to do is from the attachment level, you have to select the DP custom fields. Okay, so that's distribution protocol custom fields. Okay, so since that form is already attached, this is the ID field here. So I'll say this is the ID. Okay, so once all the details are filled out, you can go and click. Okay, sorry for that. Okay, so my DP is now ready. So all the details that I filled out on the previous screen are added over here. Okay, then you can link the CP to DP, a single DP or multiple DP. So today what we will be using is the, so I've created a protocol for the distribution purpose. So let me just go to that. Okay, so this is the this is the collection protocol that we will be using, and in the settings here you can find distribution. Okay, so here you can select the DP that we created. Okay, so say training webinar DP and click on add. So this is how you link a CP to a DP. I can add multiple distribution protocols over here, with allowing me to send out samples from this CP using these DPs. So as of now, let's just stick to the training webinar DP. Okay. Then next is reserve samples of a CP to a specific PI or DP. So say in some cases, what happens is there are some samples collected and they are allocated to one particular researcher. The researcher is doing some study on lung cancer or say breast tumor samples. The whatever collections are being done at site A, he has requested to receive all those samples from site A. So in this case, so that users are aware that these samples are not to be sent out to anyone else, what we can do is we can reserve the samples for that particular user or the researcher. Okay, so all you need to do is, so from any specimen list page or visit list page, you can just select samples, and under actions, you'll find a, sorry, you'll find a button named as distribute. Once you click on that, you'll have two options over here. One is to distribute and one is to reserve. So now what I'll do is I'll reserve these samples. Okay, so it says 6 specimens reserved. And if you see, the color of these samples is now changed. If I go to any of these samples, it will notify that this particular sample is reserved. A reserved event is added. If you go to that event, it will let you know, it will inform you that this particular sample is reserved for the training webinar DP and can be distributed only to that DP. Okay, so that is a reservation. If you go to that DP in the reserved specimens tab, you will get to know the list of all the samples that are reserved for this DP. If I want to cancel reservation, so I accidentally added a derivative sample which I no longer want to reserve, I want to reserve only aliquot samples, I can select that sample and say cancel reservation. Okay, now if I go back to the parent, I'll get to see one more event. So this is the parent sample, the derivative that we removed. Okay, so there is a reserved event added, and I recently canceled the reservation. So there is a reservation cancelled event added. Okay, so this is how you reserve a sample and cancel the reservation. Okay, so we just now saw how to link CP to DP. Then let's go ahead and see how to do one-click distribution. So one click is distribute the samples as they are collected. You don't have to wait for the samples to accumulate. As soon as the samples are collected, the samples are sent out. So you can use one-click distribution. So let me go to the CP and collect a few samples. Okay, on let's just use these samples. Okay, so these urine samples are recently collected and I wish to distribute them now. Okay, I'll click on distribute. If you remember, we had linked the training webinar DP to the CP, so that will be displayed automatically. If you wish to change, you'll have to remove the DP from the CP list, CP settings, and here you can give some additional comments. So I can say urine samples for, okay, and I can even say I want to print the labels. So from here I can say I want to either distribute now or add more details. So I wish to distribute these samples now. Okay, so the samples are distributed and the color code for these samples is changed. So if you go to these samples, it will now say that it is distributed and the samples are closed. Okay, so the aliquots were stored in a particular location. So if you see the events over here, a transfer event is logged, which says that the specimen was stored at this location and is now transferred, is freed up from that location. Okay, for the training DP. Then there's a disposal event. Since we give up all the sample, so 2 ml sample, complete sample is given away, the sample is closed now. Okay, and a distribution event is added saying that this sample was distributed and the comments that we added are displayed over here. So this is how one click distribution works. Okay. Then we have one more option to distribute via specimen cart. Say I receive a request from researcher offline or say some paper document and he has requested for some samples. So what I can do is I can add all these samples to a cart and then send out these samples. Okay. So let's just take up some samples. Okay, so say I want to distribute all these samples, so let me just add them to a cart. So this is the demo cart and let's go to the cards. Okay, and these are the samples that are present. Okay, let me just filter out those. Okay, so these are the samples that I want to distribute. So this is a very small list as of now. So this is just 18 records. So imagine you have hundreds or say 500 of 500 number of samples that you want to distribute. You cannot keep on selecting and distributing. You can use the distribute all option, which will allow you to distribute all the samples that are present in this cart. So as of now, what I'll do is, since I have 18 samples and I want to distribute samples that have quantity, I'll select the samples and I'll click on distribute. Okay. The user is then taken to this screen, which is the create order. From here, I can select the training DP that we created. Okay, the name is auto generated. If you want, you can change the order name. Okay, all the other details. So as soon as you selected the DP, all the other details that we filled up in the DP are populated over here. So you can add some tracking URL as well. Okay, so the sender comments. Okay, and here are the custom fields that are attached at the order level. So if you remember, we had selected the order custom form to be added as the custom form for the order, and there are two fields in this form, the shipping address and the contact number of the person for whom the samples are being sent. So I can say Ken Lab, you can add the address over here, okay, with all the proper instructions and codes, and then the contact number of the person whom they need to contact. So once you fill in all these details, you can click on next. So there are three options here: next, save draft, and distribution. Save draft is you can save this draft, and then later on when you need, you can edit the order and send the samples. Distribute, directly distribute the samples, and you're done. So no more editing in the next steps. Okay, so here these are all the samples that are displayed on the screen. So here you can limit the number of samples. So seeing this screen over here, it's a bit of messy. There is an option to limit the number of specimens that are distributed, which can be done via setting. Okay, so let me just go to, okay. So here it is, here the setting says order specimen UI limit. So the maximum number of specimens that can be edited on the order specimen list is 20. So since our samples are 18 in count, that's why we are seeing this screen. If I add 2 or 3 more samples, what will happen is the screen will give me a message. So let me just add 2 more samples. Okay, I hope these are okay. Let's see. Okay, and add. Okay, so since we are already on this page, it is not allowing me to add more samples. So let's just try adding the samples, more samples to the cart. Okay, 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 so now I have 22 records, and I can add all the details over here. Okay. Think there's something wrong. Okay, let's go ahead. So here there are fields that you can edit. So you can add the quantity of samples, quantity of the sample that is to be given away. You can reduce the quantity, and if you notice, as soon as I reduce the quantity, the dispose button has been checked off. So since I am giving a sample completely, so 3 ml sample, the available quantity, and I'm giving away 3 ml. So it is marking this specimen as closed now. As soon as I give away the sample, it will mark this as closed. I can change the quantities. I can do copy first to all and it will update the quantity for all the samples. The next option here is the cost. So I can define the cost of the samples that are being sent out at the distribution protocol level. Okay, so let me just go to my training DP. Okay, so here, as I mentioned, we can add requirements. So here I can say that I want to distribute particular set of samples which have these certain properties. Okay, so I can select the anatomic site. I can say what's the pathological status. So here, let me say I want to give away fresh tissue which are malignant. Okay, and I don't want to specify the clinical diagnosis, but I say I want to give away 50 samples which are of fresh tissue, which are fresh tissue and malignant, and the quantity per sample is sorry, quantity per specimen is say 1 gram. So I want to distribute 50 grams of sample, and that depends on the tube size that is being sent, that the calculation will be done automatically. Then the cost of the sample that is being sent out, I can add the cost over here and it will automatically populate on that screen. Okay, so I can say malignant fresh tissue samples. Then I had added a custom field at the DP requirement level, as the DP requirement ID. Here I can add the ID. Okay, similarly, you can create n number of requirements, and based on that, the cost will be populated, as well as the you can keep a track of how many samples were distributed or are planned to be distributed. So let me add a few more. Okay, no clinical diagnosis, 20 samples, 1 ml, and say this is 25. Okay, I can edit, I can add more requirements, I can edit the existing ones or delete based on the requirement. If they change anytime in the future, this can be done. Okay, other thing that you can add is services. So here I can say that when I'm giving away my sample, I need to charge more based on the services that I provide. So here I can say that I am going to charge for aliquoting. So I can say aliquoting charges. In this drop down, you can say whether it was an external funding or internal funding. Okay, based on that, you can charge. Okay, so that's aliquoting charges. Then I can say I want to charge for the DNA processing. Okay, and say 50. Okay, you can edit the cost as per the requirement is. You can add more services. There's even an option to bulk import the services if there are multiple things that you do at your lab, some charges that need to be added when sending out the samples. You can add these over here. Okay, so once you are done, you can go back to the distribution. Okay, so let's just finish this distribution and then we can see the, okay. Oh, I have recently added it, so it won't come up. And here I'll say distribute. So all the samples that were there in the cart are now distributed. So the count should be 22. So here are the samples that are distributed. And if you remember, I had changed the count for one of the samples. So all the other samples are shown as distributed and closed. But for the one that I said that the sample is going to be distributed, the quantity was 10 ml, but I gave away only 3 ml. So the quantity is updated. This is 7 ml here. And the initialist was 10 ml. So distribution event has been added, but no disposal event is present since the sample is still available. Okay, so that was for distribution via cards. Okay, then it is also possible to validate the specimens that are being distributed. I'll take this up when distributing the next order. You can generate report as per the required format. So you can create a query and save that query and use it as the report, and you can download the report later on whenever the orders are created. Specimens are marked as unavailable and freed from location. So as I mentioned, if you are giving away 10 ml of sample completely, then it means that the sample is no more available at the institute, and the location that the sample was using is now freed up so that it can be used for storing other samples. Invoicing. So you can add services at the distribution protocol level. So recently I showed you how you can add internal and external funding services, and based on that the uh, charges will be applied. You can even download these invoices and send it out along with the distribution. Okay, so let's go ahead and, okay, so let's say I want to distribute, let's, okay, let me first create some aliquots out of these. Sorry. Okay, so now I want to distribute these samples. So I'll directly click on distribute and say add more details. Okay, then to the next screen. The sample is of 0 ml, so I just want to get rid of that. Okay, so here this is the list of samples. So there are 10 aliquots that I have added on the screen. There is an option to validate. So let me just show you how that works. Okay, you have a list of samples that need to be sent out. Okay, and this is the list of those samples. Now you want to check whether these samples are present in this list or not. So here I can scan the label, so it can be either comma separated or new line. And once you are done with adding that, you can click on validate. So here it will say that 4 specimens are present in the order, which is passed. Specimens not present in the order 0, that is none, the labels that are The specimens that are not present in this order, the labels are not present in the scanned box. Additional fields present in the order. So remember I had added 10 samples, and those samples that are scanned are only 4. So you can check whether, so imagine you have hundreds of samples that are to be distributed. So then that will be chaotic when you have to compare. So you can do validate, and once you copy to clipboard, it will allow you to get a report of that validation. So if you see from label 5 to 10, these samples are not present in the order. So now I can go back and check whether these samples are actually present or not. Okay. So that being said, I can click on OK and I can proceed further. Okay. Here I can add the services. If you remember, we had added services in the first screen. So these are 10 units. So aliquoting charges, I have created 10 aliquots, and I'm going to charge for the same. So this is the invoicing that is working now. Once you're done with adding this, you can add multiple services over here. You can select this, you can add the units. Okay, if something was added accidentally, you can even cancel out that. So since I am charging them only for the aliquot charge, once I am done, I can click on distribute. Okay, so here if there are two options, you can download a report of the samples distributed, and you can download the invoice of the samples. Okay, so let me open both the reports. Okay, so this is the distribution report. These are the samples that are distributed. So this is the query that is working, which has got all the fields that are there in the query list view. And this is some additional data. So this is about the order and DP. Some fields are in combination here. Then the other thing that we downloaded was the invoice. Okay. So here, this is the cost that is added. Okay, so the aliquoting charges, cost per service unit 10, number of service units 10, and the charges 100. Okay, so you can send out the distribution report along with the invoice. So once the order is created, you get to see 3 tabs over here. The second tab is for the specimens. Okay, so these are the specimens that are distributed. If you remember, we had specified anonymizing label format. So some labels that needed to be generated to anonymize. So these are the labels. So these are called as distribution labels, and these are the actual sample labels present in open specimen. Okay, then the invoice. So whatever charges were applied for this order, you can even view them over here. Okay. So you can also distribute specimens via the Specimen Actions menu. So let's go back to the specimens. I'll take a easy route there. Okay. So from here, you can select samples which are available. You can select samples from actions. You can click on distribute, or there is even from the view specimens tab, you can search for the samples that you plan to distribute. You can populate the list based on that. So say I want to give away only serum samples. You can filter out, select and distribute. So just select samples and I can directly say I want to distribute and say add more details. Okay. Next. Okay. So if you see the cost of, I had added a cost for sending out serum samples. The cost is automatically populated here. Okay. Next, I can add service. Okay. And this was 29 and say distribute. Okay. So if you see here, some of the samples are reserved for another DP, which is why it is not allowing me to distribute. Okay, so if you see, this sample is reserved for the LCS DP, which is why it did not allow me to distribute it in the training DP. Okay, so open specimen gives you proper errors when there are rights issues, the privilege issue, or quantity issue. It will give you proper error messages on the user interface. Then return samples. Say users have, we gave away samples. I gave away a sample which was 10 ml. So there were some multiple samples like this, but the researcher did not use the complete amount. They used a limited amount of sample and they want to return the sample back to the repository. So one can do this using the return tab. Okay. So let me go to the orders. So this is one of the orders here. So say they are planning to give away these samples. So, okay, let me just, okay, and go back to orders. Okay, here you'll see there's an option to return specimens. I can add the labels for these samples and say get details. Okay, so it will give you the distribution order under which the samples were distributed and what is the quantity remaining. So say you gave away 2 ml and they are returning back 1 ml of sample, you can add that over here, okay, or even 1.5. Then if you wish to store these samples immediately as they are returned, you can even select the location from here and move those samples directly to the locations. Okay, so here I'll say I want to store it in this freezer. Then you can add the date and time when the sample was returned. You can even add freeze thaw samples since this sample was removed out of the freezer, used, and then put back. So the freeze thaw cycle has increased now. You can add that over here. You can add additional comments, and once done, you can click on submit. Okay, you can do this for multiple samples using bulk import as well. So I had a few samples, so that's why I used the user interface. So let's go to the sample that was just returned. Okay, so the status for this sample is returned and 1 ml sample was returned. A return event is added with the details that we specified on the user interface. And I have moved the sample to a location. The location is also added over here. Okay, so that's for a returning sample. You can, so say sometime later, the distribution protocol requirements had to be changed or the distribution protocol had to be edited for changing some details. So you can do this at any time point. So let's just go to the DP. You have an edit option here. You can come here, you can change some details, you can add details. Okay, say the ID changed. Okay, and once done, you can update. You even have an option to close the DP. Say my time duration of 2 years is now over and I don't wish to do any distribution under this particular DP. So I can choose an option to close the DP, which will further not allow me to do any distribution under this DP. If I say close, this will now close my DP. Okay, and this will no longer be visible in the DP drop down. So I need this, so I'll just reopen it again. Okay. So a distribution protocol can be edited at any time. It can be deleted only if there are no distributions done under it. So now if I try to delete this DP, the system won't allow me since it doesn't know what to do with the orders that are present under this DP. So there will be no record left for that. So that's why we do not allow deleting distribution protocols after the distribution is done. Draft distributions can be edited. So whenever, if say you have created a draft order, and you are waiting for confirmation from the researcher whether to send the samples, or do they require something more, you can keep such distribution in draft mode, and later on, as soon as the information is complete, you can send out the samples. Completed distributions cannot be edited. So once the samples are sent out, an order is created successfully, you cannot edit any information in those orders. Bulk import distribution. So when to use bulk import distribution? In the past, what I have done is I have sent out multiple samples to researchers, and now I want to keep a track of all such samples that I have given away. What I can do is I can record all such information in a CSV file and then import this into OpenSpecimen. Okay, so if you go to orders, so this is a history tab where you can get to see all the orders that were carried out for that particular DP. So here you have an option to do bulk import where you can download the template, add in the data, and import all the legacy data. Coming to distribution reporting, okay, you can check the distribution data using the reporting module. Okay, you can create a fresh query under specimens. You just scroll down. You can query based on the distribution event. Okay, so say I want to know all the orders that were distributed under the training webinar. Okay, so here it says that I have given away 38 samples. You can add more filters based on what information you want and populate the results. So here I don't need any participant data, so I'll just uncheck that, and I'll select more fields at the specimen level. Okay, I don't need the type. Okay, I can select more details under the who was the distributor, the quantity, what date the distribution was done. Okay, whether the samples were reserved, the reservation detail. Okay, whether the samples were returned, what quantity was returned. You can select such multiple fields, and once you're done with that, you can click on done. So it will give you a detail of the specimens that were distributed. So this is the training webinar details. Okay, so if you filter based on, okay, so these are all the samples that were distributed. So if you go to any one of these, it will show you the details for the distribution as well. Okay, so this was distributed and all these details. That's why it is being populated over here. Okay, check older orders. So how will you check the older orders? So I just now showed you how you can do that. Okay. So under the DP, there's an option called as history, the third tab here, in which you'll get to know the list of all the orders that were executed for this DP. Or you can even go to the orders list page. It will show you the recent orders on the top. You can even search for orders based on these filters, or you can use query. Okay, so we just now saw how to do the reporting. There is one default report that is there. So if you just search the query that we used, so this is the default query that is shipped with open specimen, based on which the report was populated. Okay, so this is the, so if I show you the report, so this is the invoice, this is the report. So if you see, these are the fields that are being displayed based on the query. So these are all the fields that are displayed in the query. So if you update this report, update this query, the future reports will also be affected based on the query present over here. So you can edit the query, you can add more details here, or you can even change the columns based on the requirement. And once done, you can save the query, and all the future reports will have those fields that you have updated recently. Okay, so that was for the distribution demo. And let me know if you have any questions. You can paste the questions on the chat window. So there is a question from Fiona. Are we able to add custom fields to distribution requirements? And the answer is yes. So if you go back to the forms, okay, so here I have created a DP requirement form called as DP requirement ID. So this is the field in the form, and I have attached this field, this form, at the DP requirement custom field level. So there are three levels at which you can attach DP requirement, the DP custom fields, and the order custom fields.